Welcome back to the channel. My name is Miro, and in today's video I'm going to talk about various ownership structures and what the implications are to estate planning, tax planning, and so on. When a property or when an investment portfolio is owned individually, it is obviously very simple, very straightforward, but when there are more than one owners, there are various ownership structures available, and most people actually do not know what the differences are. Do you know how your own property is owned? Is it owned as joint tenants or tenants in common? So let's start with joint tenants, which in some cases on bank statements or investment portfolios you will see also as called joint tenants with rights of survivorship. And this is a very common arrangement in a spousal situation or when there are family members involved. It could be two or multiple owners. But essentially, when one of the tenants, when one of the owners passes on, his or her shares will roll over automatically to the survivor. The second structure that is very common or most common is tenants in common. And the difference between joint tenants and tenants in common is that when a property is owned as tenants in common, when one of the owners, one of the tenants passes on, their shares in the property would be divided according to what's in their will. So tenants in common is most often we see the structure when two unrelated parties are owning real estate or investment properties or investment portfolios together. So let's look at an example, and let's start with joint tenants. In this situation or in this example, we have husband and wife. Ownership of their house is joint tenants with rights of survivorship. But in husband's will, his will states that 50% of his estate will go to his wife and 50% of his estate will go to his daughter. If the husband was to pass on, the property, since the property is owned as joint tenants, the property would roll over automatically. The property would bypass his will, would bypass probate, and would roll over automatically to the survivor, which is the wife. And the end result would be the house would be owned 100% by the wife, by the surviving spouse, and his daughter would not receive anything in this example. Let's briefly discuss probate. And probate is a fee which is province specific. In my own province in BC, probate is 1.4%. And essentially what happens is that when executor or executrix is ready to start dispersing assets, he or she will go to a courthouse and will get the deceased person's will probated. So any assets that will pass through probate, any assets that will be divided according to the person's will, probate fee would be applicable. In any assets that are owned as joint tenants will actually bypass will, so probate fee will not be applicable, and any assets that are owned as tenants in common will flow through the deceased person's will. Let's look at the second example. Same situation, husband, wife, and a daughter. We have a property. The property is owned as tenants in common. Husband and wife are the joint owners, but in this case, we have the property owned as tenants in common. The husband passes on. In his will, his wishes are 50% to his wife, 50% to his daughter, and since the property is owned tenants in common, his part of the ownership of the house, his 50%, would be divided according to what is in his will, which is half to his wife, half to his daughter. So the end result would be that his daughter will receive 25% ownership of the property, and the 25% of husband's property would be added on to the wife. So the wife will have 75%, and the daughter will have 25% of the property. Estate planning is a complicated subject, so please see a professional. We wanted to explain what the differences are between joint tenants, tenants in common. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, send me an email. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll be posting on a weekly basis on estate planning, tax planning, retirement, and investment management. Thanks everybody, have a great day.